other friend Mark opened up like a ranger guild,
a bounty hunter,
hunters, and
he was a bondsman, I think, a Val bondsman.
So like there were all these things, and like he didn't get all that much money. Like we would roll on the charts, and it's like, that's it, really? I'm like, what is this? I would sometimes like bump those numbers up just to like be a little bit more gracious.
And it's still not that exciting.
But it's still like, woo, 17 gold. We're 11th level. What the flip, man?
Yeah. Now, before we get into other rewards other than magic items and gold, let's talk about why there might be some problems with magic items and gold, and they might not be the greatest rewards in D&D, and may even become boring.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
And I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
All right, so what are we talking about today, Dave?
We're going to talk about D&D treasure. Last time we talked about D&D treasure, we talked about Electrum, but today we're going to be talking about, non-standard treasures, things that in some ways are better than gold and maybe even magic items. Treasure in D&D has always been a very big part of the game. We kill monsters, we take their stuff, we tell stories together, but at the core, I think like it's always, to some degree, been about exploring, finding the monster, ending the monster, getting its stuff.
Well, I mean, how often do you hear the phrase that doesn't even make sense to a lot of gamers today of like, oh, I Greyhawk the bodies.
Yeah.
Like, they might not even have a clue what Greyhawk is or was or what have you. It's just a term, a vernacular in the RPG space.
And, players do love the term loot. So let's take a look real quick at what 5e D&D says Dungeons & Dragons about.
All right, so from the Player's Handbook, in the Dungeons & Dragons game, each player creates an adventure, also called a character, and teams up with other adventurers, played by friends. Working together, the group might explore a dark dungeon, a ruined city, a haunted castle, a lost temple deep in a jungle, or a lava-filled cavern beneath a mysterious mountain. The adventurers can solve puzzles, talk with other characters, battle fantastic monsters, and discover fabulous magic items and other treasure.
So it literally ends with treasure.
Treasure and, magic items and other treasure. So, like, the big thing, the takeaway is stuff. Now, let's face it. Getting magic items in D&D is awesome. We all enjoy it, but, like, what are some of the problems with getting magic items in D&D? Well, I mean, with magic items, there's always especially with 5th edition, is, well, what if I've already got my attunement slots filled up? Or what if multiple people in the party really want that item? Are characters, or worse, players, going to fight over something?
Well, there's that, but also I think there's also the sense of, if you give too many magic items, you got a Monty Hall campaign, and it is just going to unbalance the game and the characters. There's tons of magic items you can get that actually don't require attunement. In addition to the attunement slots, it becomes a big part of the game, and then it becomes harder and harder for the dungeon master to try and challenge their players. So you also have to find the balance from that side of the screen as well. And also, there's definitely a part of me that feels like if you're just giving out magic items all the time, it feels a lot less special when you get them.
And then it becomes more about, well, what gear do I have than what abilities do I have? And it almost makes the class choices become meaningless.
I feel like in 1st edition and 2nd edition, the equipment you had was so much more important. There's so much more you could do with it, and it was up to the players to be creative and find ways to use it. There was no attunement. You didn't have to worry about that. There weren't even magic item slots that came along in 3rd edition and also in Pathfinder. And also they codified it in those versions of D&D where like you kind of needed the gear because at a certain level, you were expected to have X amount in order to be on par with other characters of that level.
There was a generic formula that was out there, and you had 10 different magic item slots. You could wear X number of rings, a cloak, something on your head, an armor piece, a magic weapon. You could have boots, belts, what have you. And characters would have, like, as part of your character sheet, like this, like, little picture and what magic items you put in what spot. It was impossible to wear 2 cloaks. You just couldn't do such a thing. The magic of it wouldn't allow you. So it's like, all right, well, I gotta find, what cloak am I gonna wear? Do I wear the cloak of displacement, or do I wear the cloak of protection? Choices.
Yeah, so, and then 4th edition came along. I don't even remember what they did in 4th edition. And 5e's like, hey, if you can make it work, you can make it work. If you wear as many hats as you want, put 2 cloaks on, but you only have 3 attunement slots, that's the key.
Yeah, and that greatly changes, what's there. 5th edition has come along and they've tried to tone down the aspect of magic items so that it's more about the character, and their abilities than it is about what power their magic items bring to the table. But it's still something that, even after, almost a decade of playing 5th edition, we still want magic items that are geared towards our character and things that are going to focus the powers that we already have and maybe allow us to branch in another direction every so often.
So next up is gold, and what is the problem with gold in D&D, and why can't we just shower our players in gold all the time? They need no other treasures. Heck, if you're running the kind of game where you have magic item shops, they can just go buy their magic items.
So having unlimited gold, it then becomes useless when you get more gold. Well, if I've already got more than I can do anything with, why do I need more? Why do I have to keep adventuring? Can I just retire and pay people to do the things that I want? Do you actually look at real world economy and extrapolate that into D&D? And if you've got so much money, are you breaking the economy? Are there problems that are happening from you strolling into a town, dropping off 1 million gold pieces in purchases and things, and walking away? What is that going to do to the place that you just left? There's all of these questions that could possibly happen. And you could get into a very political game from it. And if you're not desiring to go down that road, then gold might be a problem.
It's funny, I was just watching a TikTok earlier today, and it's talking about the richest person in the world that you never heard of. And it was an African kingdom, and this king did this, he controlled most of the gold in the world at the time. And they figured out his wealth, what it would have been today. And he'd be like twice as rich as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, right? Wow. Yeah, because he had that much gold. Well, he did he's Muslim, went to Mecca, did the pilgrimage, had a huge entourage, and just would give gold to everyone he saw just because he could. Wow. And destabilized several economies and just ruined them on his way. And it talked about he had hundreds of slaves, and he gave each one of them a gold staff to carry for no other reason than he just could.
Because he could. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, there's an example of, something that could very well happen, within a fantasy setting, since it's already happened, kind of in the real world.
Yeah. So that's the problem. And then also it's once you have so much coins and you're so wealthy in D&D, what do you do with it all? What, where do you spend it? Is it even fun, right? We had a friend that would always talk about gold's worthless in D&D, right? Because a lot of it doesn't do anything in the game. Sure, you can do things, you can buy things, but what does it actually mean? You could buy a chariot made of gold or, a coach made of gold, but mechanically doesn't mean anything. You can't take it in the dungeon, and if you leave it outside the dungeon, it is probably not going to be there when you get. I mean, you could hire an army to guard it probably, but again, these are role-playing incentives that some people don't find rewarding, so they're not going to care about them as much.
If you're looking for a way to support the channel as well as all the awesome content over on nerdarchy.com, why not come check us out over on Patreon and support us over there?
Articles let's make a deal and run a Monty Hall D&D game for Dungeons & Dragons. Yes, it goes completely against everything we just said, but we have that article on the website if you want another point of view.
Other things that can be done as rewards when you're playing role-playing games like 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, first and foremost is going to be titles. Whether you get, just a title and a namesake that you're, captain of the guard, or, you are a sergeant, or, you are a noble, what have you, some kind of prestige within the place that you call home can be a great thing that you can have done, because then that opens up the door to other quests and other things within the realm of political intrigue.
Yeah, role-playing opportunities, and but also you can totally just Scooby-Doo it too, right? Be like, oh, you found you've now inherited a castle, you've been gifted a castle, or and then in case of inherited, you've inherited, but you have to be able to spend that one full night there, and it's haunted or something. But unlike Scooby-Doo, where it's some old guy in a mask, it's going to be actual ghosts and undead.
Or like in the recent game that you ran this past weekend, we wound up finding the deed to an inn. So it was like, all right, how does this work? So like, did we have to go find a barrister? What is the deal to say that we legitimately own this? Is it just possession of this deed? So like all of those kind of things can be added into a game. So like you get a castle, you get an inn, you get some kind of land, and there are so many players that enjoy the sake of owning a place.
So a funny thing, I completely forgot about that when we're talking about doing this video. If you've watched the Ozarks, this is like really to in the season, so spoilers. But it's been out for a little while, and this is like season 1, I think. One of the things is they want to buy a strip club. The owner won't sell it to them, so they steal the deed. And because the way it's set up, it isn't deeded to this specific person. It's like corporations, like it's being done as a money laundering operation. So they do a very specific type of deed. So having possession of the deed is how you would actually own the property. And it doesn't go into how you get possession of it, right? As long as you can prove that you have possession. Right. Yeah. So it's funny, right? Because we're talking about in our game, it's like, how does that work in the deed? Like, how does that deed work in D&D in this world? Is it deeded to a specific person? Is it as long as you have the proper paperwork? How do you get it switched over? And since the person that actually owned it is no longer around, maybe you guys need a forger to have it left to you in a will. I don't know.
So like those are things that can also lead to more adventures, and again, whether it be political or criminal, you could do things to go steal a deed or acquire it or contact a forger, as Dave says, to try and get it lent or legally bound to a particular individual or group. You can have a lot of fun with it. So it's a reward that you don't really get anything until you finish the extra part of the quest.
And also the amount of gold that you would earn for running a business isn't very much, because in your first 5e campaign, Ryan's character ran a tailor shop. Yep. And the amount of gold he received, he's like, why would I ever do this and not just an adventure? It's like I can literally just go on one adventure, be done, and I'll make what I would make in a lifetime as from being a tailor.
And I mean, eventually, the other friend Mark opened up a ranger guild,
a bounty hunter,
hunters,
Yeah.
And
he was a bondsman, I think, a Val bondsman.
So there were all these things, and he didn't get all that much money. We would roll on the charts, and it's like, that's it, really? I'm like, what is this? I would sometimes bump those numbers up just to be a little bit more gracious.
And it's still not that exciting.
But it's still woo, 17 gold. We're 11th level. What the flip, man?
Yeah. So the next thing is information, right? And this could be information that no one else has. This could be information that's going to lead you to more adventure, to maybe find one of those cool magic items, especially if you're not giving them out regularly, or your GM might be a little stingy, but they're like, here's a lead to this really cool, powerful item that you can now quest for.
The great part about information is it's steeped with adventure, regardless of whether it's fulfilling a party goal, a character goal, an NPC goal. It has the ability to, catapult the game, the quest into another direction. Maybe you were held back, and until you got this information, the quest couldn't really go forward. Or perhaps somebody did indeed spot that person that you're looking for, and here's where they are. Maybe I can't give you what they saw or what they know, but I can tell you who it was, and now you have the next step of your adventure. These things are super pivotal. It's not super rewarding to be like, oh my God, I got information, unless you're really into it. But, you can really have a lot of fun with that and really bring and sell the sizzle.
Well, so this actually came up in several instances in the non-D&D game I'm running, Zoo Mafia RPG. It's a game that we're working on developing. We've been live play testing it on the channel. We've designed diaries here on the channel. But, early on, you guys found information about a train, a secret train run with contraband on it. So you guys wanted to perform a train heist.
Oh, yeah.
Without the information, you couldn't have done that.
Right.
Even and in last night's session, one of the players brought up the fact that you have a brother that was transferred from the zoo you guys are in to another zoo, and he's like, hey, if now that we're expanding our influence, and we're talking about expanding the influence of the crime family we work for beyond the zoo, maybe we can reach out and figure out where your brother is and go get them, right? So like perform a heist. So that's a personal thing from your backstory that kind of motivates your character. And also one of the other players is like kind of latching onto it going, hey, this is a thing we could do for you. And it's like you put in there as like backstory, not really to be acted on, but more of like a motivation when what drives your character.
Mm-hmm. But, those kind of things that even when you create just cool backstory, like that becomes part of the lore. That is information. And, Tommy likes to share about, his brother Torrance and what have you. But when players keep seeing that information, it's like, well, what if? Where can that go? And who knows whether the story eventually goes in that direction or not. But it's absolutely awesome to have, that character interaction and seeking out that information. And, who knows? Maybe at some point in time, they look for that information. Maybe they try and act on it. Who knows? But having that information, if you can get it, gives the opportunity of whether that's a possibility or not.
Yeah, so finally we have mechanical benefits, right? This is one I think it's used a lot in our games.
Oh, yeah.
Early on, there was an Unearthed Arcana that released racial feats for 5e D&D, and you're like, I really like this. Everyone just take one.
I am all about, look, I can give as much stuff, whether it be magic items, free mechanical bonuses. I feel confident enough in my skill as a DM to push and challenge any level of play within the game, especially where D&D is concerned. So adding extra feats, adding stat bonuses, adding skills, extra spells, what have you, I'm here for it. I do it all the time. In my untraditionally arcane game, I actually had them wandering through like a very necrotic area, and there was a whole bunch of spirits. And I'm like, all right, this is a player choice, so that if anyone feels uncomfortable, you can have it, you fight it off and it goes away, no long-term issues. If you want it, you can allow the spirit to come inside of you. Characters gained a language, a skill, and a single spell that was up to the level that they could cast even outside of wizardry spells. But in order to do so, they had to say who this spirit was and give me some lore information about them so that they could kind of come up in game. But characters got a mechanical benefit for traveling through a dark and spooky place, and some fun role-playing has happened because of that. An extra skill or a language proficiency, not a big deal. A spell off of their wizard spell list, that can be really nice and really powerful if you make the right choice.
Yeah, under the Dome game that I'm running, like you guys started with Devil's Rides, so basically motorcycles. Mm-hmm. You guys, won a race, and one of the rewards was upgrading that motorcycle. In addition, giving it a special ability. In addition to that, you got grind, which is basically the fuel for it. Mm-hmm. It's just a amorphous thing in the game that could possibly have other uses, but right now, mostly it's used to powering your vehicles. Mm-hmm. You guys have gone out and made connections, which could be another reward.
Sure.
Where you're possibly setting up a new trade partner. You guys have went and got a whole new vehicle, a demon grinder, which is a beast of a vehicle that you're able to procure. So there's been all kinds of things, and the best part about most of that stuff is it's not that the characters get mechanical benefits out of them, but sometimes they do, but that instead they lead to more adventure, more role-playing, more exciting things in the game. One of the things that's happening in one of our games, the players wanted to get information about someone they're trying to find. So they went to these hags, And the hags agreed, but the price for it was they wanted to have a baby from one of the players. And so one of the players consented to being involved, and they're like, okay, do I now have to do it with this hag? And no, that's not what happened anyway. The hag takes their finger and sticks it through their skull, and the player experiences all kinds of things, and then she's like, okay, it's done. And now their head feels really full. They don't know what's going on. They've had to make saving throws, and, part of failing that saving throw was they took some damage, and they got a feat. And they had to pick, one of 3 feats. They're going to get to do this several times, but eventually something is probably going to happen. And all the players understand that this ultimately could end really badly if they don't fix it. Mm-hmm. And then some of the characters are not sure what to think of it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in that group, most of the party are idiots. There's a lot of dumped intelligence and wisdom scores.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to be fair, of the 5 players, 3 of them have levels in Barbarian.
Yeah.
So
our goblin is now carrying a hag brain baby. Full consent was given before any of this happened, and it was possible they could have negotiated possible other ways of getting what they wanted or doing it a different way. But the goblin seemed intrigued by this prospect.
And these kind of things, number one, beyond the mechanical benefits that the goblin barbarian is going to get before something bad happens, hilarity is ensuing at the actual table. And, I know that this particular player really, he doesn't want his character to die, but he's here for it. He's enjoying the process. And now we've got a barbarian, Path of the Beast, who is now a telekinetic. So, yeah.
So we'll see where that story ends, if they'll be able to purge their brain baby or not in the near future.
But if you're looking to power up your own players with some other mechanical benefits, why not check out Hit Dice to Heroic? Sometimes heroes need to dig deeper and become a little more heroic. From Hit Dice to Heroics is a supplement for 5th edition. There are over 40 options for spending hit dice other than regaining hit points. Players can begin tapping into these options as soon as they hit level 2. Your character class and sometimes your subclass determine what options might be available to you. Channel your very vitality into arcane or divine might if you're a spellcaster. A barbarian can even channel more of their mighty totem animals. Fighters are inspired to even deadlier skill with their blade. These are just some of the possibilities found within. There are at least 3 new options for each of the core character classes.
There will be a link in the description to check that out. What are some of the rewards you've given in your 5e Dungeons & Dragons game? Let us know and share them with the Nerdarchy community down below in the comments.
While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Even go ahead and click on that notification bell. You know the drill.
Quick reminder, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. But you can't wait till then? No worries, we got you covered. There's a card up here where you can check out D&D Treasure. Why is Electrum the best coin?
So until next time,
stay nerdy.